Mary's. I'm the Reverend Chris Lee. I'm the rector of the parish, and on behalf of our vestry and all our members, just want to thank you all, let you know how grateful we are that you're here, so that we can remember our dear beloved friend, Barbara. Many of you know, because you were there, that St. Mary's could not hold Barbara's funeral, so we had it up the road at St. Mark's. But we always had the thought that we wanted an opportunity to celebrate Barbara's life here at our parish home, and I'm so happy that tonight we're going to have the chance to do just that. What we're going to hear is a handful of reflections from Barbara's family and some of her closest friends, and a few pieces of music from our music director and our choir. And after one final hymn, which is number 287 in the blue book that should be on the seat pocket in front of you, we'll move into the parish hall, which is in the building just beyond the sanctuary, where a few more people will share reflections. We'll have some refreshments, and then we'll open up the microphone for others. Speaking of microphones, this one craves close contact. So if you're speaking, you probably want to do what I'm doing and hold it close to your mouth. Now let us pray. Grant, O Lord, to all who are bereaved the spirit of faith and courage, that they may have strength to meet the days to come with steadfastness and patience, not sorrowing as those without hope, but in thankful remembrance of your great goodness, and in the joyful expectation of eternal life with those they love. And this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Hi. Hi, my name is Kevin Jackson. I'm Barbara's son. Closer. They picked the wrong person to start. I didn't have any prepared remarks, and I was sorry. I know this was a pet peeve. They wanted to get this microphone. Anyway, I just wanted to thank all of you for coming. It means a lot to my family and my dad. What was it? I want to specifically thank a few people that helped us. It was, thinking back about it, was very abrupt. It happened so fast. It puts you in a place where you never expect it to be. But I want to say, without Mary Weiss, we wouldn't have known what to do. I was terrible at this, sorry. But she really helped us with that process, and thank you, Mary, for all that support. Paul Ashout was also critical during that time, and really was helpful and brought us together. And I think the problem, well, not the problem, but it was just so quick. We were all in shock, and I think my dad was really wanting to have this so we could all think about her and celebrate her. For me, it's a little overwhelming. She was my number one fan. She was my, I told everyone who would listen the night before this happened, I was having a hard time. I called her up, and she gave me a 2-hour pep talk. Who does that when your son is 59 years old? But she was always there, and she was always made me feel like I was the most important person. And that's, I think, how she made all of us feel. And I'm sorry I can't be more stoic, but it's really just hard for me. It's hard for me. Like, I think public this is not the best place for me to tell everyone how I think about my mom. I think if you know me, you know how much I love her. pass.
And thank everybody for being so helpful to Ken.
And thank you for reaching out to Ken and being a support net for him in terms of this really difficult time afterwards. And with setting up dinners and reaching out to make sure he wasn't lonely, it was really key. I think, we all try to prepare for when someone dies, but you just never do. You just can't. And in truth of the matter, you don't want to. And so, I'm just happy. I feel blessed that we had her for 85 years. She lived the best life. And she was the best mom and friend. So.
Great. There you go. Okay.
Wait.
Okay.
And I recently saw Jesus because I got cold cocked the other night by a stranger in the city, and I guess what it taught me was that my mom always taught me to get back up and always never give up, and I'm here, so thanks to her.
My remarks are actually written down, so bear with me. Thank you all again for gathering here and really to be here this evening to celebrate the remarkable life of Barbara. The overwhelming presence of friends and family, near and far, both at the funeral and here, are really a true testament about the immense impact that Barbara had on us all. Tonight's a time to reflect and celebrate, a time to honor the extraordinary person that Barbara was, and to share the stories and memories that make her so unforgettable. While no words or recollections could ever fully capture the depth of her character or the countless joyful moments we shared, let us hope that this evening sparks a lasting tradition to remember Barbara, not only tonight, but every day, at every holiday, and in every milestone. We truly carry her presence with us. Barbara's legacy lives on in each of us. I often catch myself wanting to pick up the phone of late, certainly Sunday evening when this happened, and call her. But instead, in those moments, I have to sort of catch myself and think, what would Barbara do in this particular circumstance? Her example continues to guide us, reminds us to live with more gratitude, generosity, empathy, and to see the good in everybody, just as she did. Barbara was, in many ways, the hardest working person I've known. And I don't know if these guys know it, but she would often tell me that it was because of her German roots. She was German, right, Ken? Okay, yeah. And that shined through in her diligence, perseverance, and determination. She took great pride in everything she did, and she was very passionate about everything. Though I didn't see her in action as a teacher and as the chair at the English department at Blindbrook, I can only imagine how demanding her days must have been. Waking at the crack of dawn, caring for 2 boys, teaching all day, coming home to make dinner, then grading papers or preparing for the next lesson. Kevin often joked about being a latchkey kid, making French fries for himself and Gordon after school, skills that luckily for us, he's carried into adulthood. Even if he tries to keep me out of the kitchen now, which I'm grateful for, somehow Barbara managed it all, without any help, seemingly effortlessly, always looking glamorous, and greeting everyone with her radiant smile. Her reward, whether she realized it or not at the time, was the generation of loving and deeply appreciative students that she regularly heard from, sometimes through heartfelt letters, sometimes through serendipitous encounters. And Ken just mentioned to me today that he received actually hundreds of adoring letters and notes that came in after her passing. Whether she was teaching students to appreciate Fitzgerald or Faulkner, or helping them refine college essays, and we all know there were way more, hundreds of non-students that she helped with the essays. Barbara actually shared her teaching and caring and craft for writing and deeply impacted all. I remember once at a Dwight event about 3 years ago, a former student who's now a Dwight administrator spotted Barbara literally from across the room, rushed over and gave her a giant hug. It was clear she hadn't aged a day in her students' eyes, But Barbara later told me that these encounters with former students happened often and were deeply meaningful and gratifying to her. She loved catching up with students, understanding what they'd been going, what their paths were like, and how she truly made a positive impact. Her caring determination reached far beyond the classroom. She touched countless lives through her dedicated service and leadership on various boards, especially at Neighbors Link and here at St. Mary's. Her organizational skills, meticulous planning, were nothing short of masterful. And each project and fundraising event in each she undertook was infused with her trademark thoughtfulness and attention to detail. Yet more than any title or achievement, Barbara took the greatest pride in her ability to make the community a better place. Barbara was the ultimate connector and gatherer. She typically hosted an endless string of summer barbecues, introducing friends from all walks of life and treating everyone with dignity and respect. And she had a gift for making people feel seen and valued, often calling new friends good friends, and even after just one meeting. But she truly, truly meant it, and she really did keep up with all those folks. Our friends in Connecticut, where we spend time in the summers, are always thrilled to see Barbara and Ken, and they would fit right in, striking up conversations and endless and friendships with ease year after year. Barbara was so thoughtful. If you mentioned a book or the Encyclopedia of New York to her in conversation, she would often end up sending that to that particular person, and I would find out about it later on a hike or something, and it was just remarkable. She was also deeply thoughtful and considerate, and anticipating everyone's needs, whether it was her famous fudge at the legendary Christmas party, or popsicles waiting for the kids in the freezer, or a chilled glass of Prosecco waiting for me. Barbara always made everyone feel very special, and she had a knack for checking in, truly listening, and always being eager to know exactly how you were really doing. Barbara was profoundly grateful, never missing an opportunity to express her thanks. Even with family, she wrote heartfelt notes after every gathering, reminding us about the power and importance of appreciation. Above all, Barbara was devoted. She would drop everything at the drop of a hat for Luke or Dylan, and being the quintessential doting grandmother. I'm almost done. Even in the smallest ways, Barbara loved being with family and friends. During COVID, we added her to our family Wordle chat. And I think it was the second Wordle chat she was in, so she really loved playing Wordle and so appreciative to join in. She loved playing with the words, sparking conversation with everyone each day. Unsurprisingly, she was the best Wordle player among us, regularly solving the puzzles in just 2 tries. She earned the affectionate nickname Barb in 2. And we still talk about her in our Wordle group very, very often. As an aside, I know I will deeply miss playing Scrabble with her, which is one of the things we love to do together, and that she will be dearly missed at that as well. Tonight we share our memories. Let us celebrate the many ways Barbara touched and enriched our lives. Let's honor her by striving to embody her kindness, generosity, perseverance, and boundless love. In doing so, we keep her spirit alive today and always.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. I apologize in advance if I start to cry, but I would just like to say a few words about my grandmother Bieber. I think many will remember Bieber as a truly special person, or at the very least, the Queen of Wordle. But it is clear to anyone that has heard about Bieber's upbringing and life that she had immense strength, determination, and talent. She not only worked hard to obtain a scholarship to the University of Memphis as an only child raised by her grandmother, but she never stopped excelling, graduating at the top of her class and further inspiring those around her as an English teacher and chair, and later as board of Neighbors Link and St. Mary's. Of course, I heard stories about Bieber's life as a child, how she would always have her nose in a book in her grandmother's general store, spending all day at the public tennis courts mastering the sport and continuously defying expectations throughout her life. Bieber was not only a role model to me in terms of her academic and athletic excellence, but more importantly through her kind nature. The Bieber I knew was so much more than her accomplishments. My grandmother was above all else a compassionate, loving, empathetic, caring, and understanding person. She taught me the importance of being kind to everyone, treating everyone as someone who should be valued, and responding to hate with love. Bieber instilled these values in me at a young age, particularly during our habitual lunch dates at the 82nd Street Diner, where the servers would chat with Bieber and refer to me as Princess, or later on at our favorite Mexican restaurant in Mount Kisco and at the Lexington Cafe. I would often talk about my family and friends, what was going on at school, and the latest news. Bieber would always listen to me intently, ask questions, and give me advice that aligned with the type of person that she was. When I was dealing with petty cousin drama, Bieber would always remind me to never respond to meanness or teasing with the same behavior, but to be the bigger person. In my eyes, Bieber was a saint, and I know whatever she told me to do was always going to be the right thing. I don't think I ever appreciated it so deeply at the time, but Bieber was always there for me. Whether it was by simply taking a nap on her lap as she stroked my head, picking up a FaceTime call for a quick catch-up, as a sounding board for advice, helping me with my writing or interviews, or cheering me on at the sidelines of my volleyball games. I don't think I have ever and will ever encounter another presence that will make me feel so calm and so loved. I will always remember the summer when I was 11 years old, being pulled out of camp to interview for a new school for Fieldston. At the time, I was furious because I didn't want to miss out on camp and leave all my friends. I came home grumpy and stubborn, not willing to listen to anyone. But of course, Bieber was there. She and I sat down for hours to discuss the school, do a mock interview, and brainstorm questions to ask. She not only told me about the ethics classes that Fieldston offered that set their curriculum apart from all other schools, but explained to me what ethics actually was. I genuinely believe her help in my preparation is what single-handedly earned my acceptance. The same proved to be true when applying to college. As world's most generous and talented editor, Bieber helped me write my supplements and construct a story for my personal essay. I remember sitting on the porch of her and Prof's house, Bieber with her legal pad in hand, taking notes while I spoke about what I wanted to include in my essay. Without her, I truly would not be in the place I am today. I am eternally grateful for her generosity, patience, and unwavering enthusiasm. She kept me motivated and exciting when life suddenly felt too overwhelming to conquer on my own. I will forever miss our lunch dates, drives around Chappaqua, days at Club Fit, and suburbs in Connecticut. I know that she will always be with me. Whenever I think of her now, I still feel the same calming, loving effect I experienced whenever I was around her. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Through my childhood, Bieber has cheered me on. Anything I wanted to do, she wanted to make sure I did. She was a role model for me, and what I've learned, everyone around her. Bieber was the best grandmother I could have ever asked for. She was extraordinary on every level. She built me up with confidence and taught me what kindness was. I never saw her say hurtful words or talk bad about a person because she saw something special in every person. She never cared what people looked like or who they were. She has something special about her, something that is only found in special people. But Bieber would also tell me how lucky she is to have me as a grandchild. But truly, she was the best grandmother I could have ever asked for. She taught me how to be kind and generous. She showed me how hard work paid off as she came from Memphis poverty. She surrounded herself with love, and that's why it's so hard to see her go. The last time I spoke to her, as she laid in the hospital bed, I said my last words as I held her hand. And I held it tight, and I know she could hear me. And I knew that if anyone were to fight and survive what she went through, it would have been her. But I knew she didn't want to suffer. She had told me that before. So when she died, I came to peace with it, and I knew she had a great life. Some of the best days me and Bieber shared was when I would sleep over, and I would always sleep on the library couch. And when I would wake up, she'd be sat on the other side of the couch, with her coffee, waiting for me to wake up. No one had ever waken up before me, but it was something we shared. She would give me a strawberry Pop-Tart, frosted of course. We watched cartoons. We'd climb up to the loft and play with my Legos as she read. And as the morning progressed, we'd have a classic breakfast run to the little store. Trampoline park and Grand Prix were a must, and usually the Mexican restaurant after. Bieber spoiled me, which she would also have to read with me as my mother's orders. And I hated reading, but when I did it with her, she made me enjoy it, and she was a great teacher, and I was able to see that. But she was a great person as well, and I think we can all understand that. So let's just keep a positive memory in our minds of her. And thank you. Where do I put this? Thank you.
I'm Mary Weiss, and Barbara was my neighbor. Actually, that somehow doesn't seem to cut it. She was my mentor, my guide, my friend. At the hospital, the term we came up with for the doctors was my almost mother. Really, Barbara was my light. Her inner and outer sparkle would lit up a room every time she entered, but her light also provided warmth. You felt like you were the most important person in the world when you talked to her. Her generous welcome made you feel at ease, like a warm embrace. Barbara's light gave clarity, too.
I could count on her sage advice for any quandary. She was always willing to listen and provide counsel, whether I was asking about a relationship, a moral dilemma, or what serving pieces to use at a party. What was nice was that she would ask for advice as well as give it. She made you feel trusted. Barbara's light also provided nurture. She saw the potential in every person she met and urged and coaxed and nudged the best out of them. Her belief in the dignity of each individual, no matter their station, helped that person gain confidence and flourish. I saw it with my kids, with our clients, with myself. Since Barbara's death, I've been coming to church with Ken some, and I've heard Chris speak a couple times about the greatest commandment, to love thy neighbor. As I circle back to all the ways that Barbara has impacted my life, I realize that she was the living fulfillment of that commandment. Maybe it is the highest praise to claim Barbara as my neighbor. And while my days are darker here without Barbara, without her warmth, her clarity, her nurture, I know her radiant soul is up there illuminating my nights, and for that I am grateful. Thank you.
Reading glasses, large font. So I'm Agnes Hassel, and I am from sunny Florida. I'm sorry I didn't bring the sunny, but the rain are tears from heaven for Barbara. Anyway, Biber, you touched my life, and you will be here in my heart forever. It was very difficult when I first moved away, retiring to Florida. And many times I told her, and also told Sue and Love this, that it was so hard to make friends in Florida. And for some reason, someone like moi, who is so social, couldn't have this problem. I think it was because I was looking for someone as special as her. And the struggle continues, looking for a friend like her. I will never be able to encapsulate what Barbara was to me. She was my dearest friend. I claim her as one of my sisters. And she also reminded me so much of my beautiful and elegant mother. And just to let everyone know, my sisters and my mother were fierce and strong and as loving as her. Barbara arrived in my life and made such an impact on me. She made me kinder, like everyone is saying, less judgmental, less critical, more thoughtful, more caring, more involved, and made me read more books. You know, right? So we chatted a lot on the phone. She picks up and says, "Hello, my angel." I felt special and truly believed I was her one and only angel until Mary Weiss, who just spoke before me, over there said with a smile, there might be more of us angels in her life. And if you are one of those angels, just keep quiet. Let's keep this list short, okay? So I would just call her to vent to. So we speak like, once, twice a week. And she would call me to vent as well. She makes my problems her problem, just so I don't have to go through them by myself, alone. And our favorite persons to vent about are our respective spouses. Sorry, Ken. We love them to death. Their faults, their sins, them just being annoying, and the venting cures all and make us love them more again. So anyway, I can go on and on. You know, we've been to many New York City black tie events, walks, breakfasts, lunches, Our Lady's trips, you know, to New Orleans. We went to Argentina, Uruguay, Italy. And by the way, she was very easy to travel with. She took care of everyone and everything here. But then when she travels with us ladies, she just relaxes. And let us take over, take charge, and do the planning. And she just takes it really easy and enjoy, and we love her for that. Also, I can go on and on about our causes and our advocacies and how she was just so involved with whatever she takes on, Neighbors Link, this church. And those, by the way, are leadership roles. She just is not a follower, and she never says no to anyone that she can help. And she is just such a quiet, born leader. She's Wonder Woman to me, and she's Wonder Woman to everyone else. But I think at the end of the day, she is most proud of being the life partner of Ken, the loving mother to late Gordon and Kevin and Carla, the grandmother to her beloved Dylan and Luke. Oh, how she loved the two of you so much, so much. Finally, I pride myself in knowing everything about her, but at the same time, maybe not everything. After all, I'm not her only angel, like she made me believe. But she was and still my angel now. Keep guiding me from where you are, B-Bear, and missing you every day, B-Bear. Thank you. Paula? Oh.
Thanks. All right. So I'd like to briefly share 3 memories of Barbara that are not only important to me, but I think will collectively illustrate what a tremendous teacher she was. Just by way of introduction, I'm Michael Schouten, and my parents have known the Jacksons since 1969. I came along in 1972, where both families were living in Riverdale in the Bronx. And my first memory actually is from my dad, as I was only 1 or 2 years old at the time. And it had to do with a playpen that my dad constructed to keep me contained and occupied whenever we had guests around. And my dad was very proud of saying that this pen, as he called it, was very effective, with the singular exception of when Barbara was around. When Barbara was around, there was no limit to the uproar and clamor I caused to get out of that pen so I could see her. And I think that we can all agree that no matter what the age, that Barbara had something that where you just wanted to be around her. The next memory is a few years later. This is after the Jacksons had moved to Chappaqua. And I was walking through their basement with their son Gordon, when all of a sudden from behind the basement I heard a whoosh, sound, which Gordon proceeded to explain to me was a dragon that they had living there. This was obviously very important news, but I had to get it verified by the one person that I trusted more than anyone else. So I marched right up to Barbara, and she immediately confirmed that indeed they had a pet dragon that lived down there. And many, many decades later, I still give that door a wide berth. And it's something that Barbara and I smiled about when I last saw her in January. Unconditional trust. This was to have been critically important when Barbara helped me out at a very difficult time in my life, which is when I was 14. I was just completing my first year of a boarding school, and it was not going well. I was struggling on many, many levels. And this particular incident had to deal with a French final exam that I hadn't prepared for. And in my frustration, rather than try to address the exam questions, I proceeded to use the hour to basically write a very misguided critique of the French teacher and his abilities. And that really put my future in that school in jeopardy. Now, my dad was a sea captain and was away at the time, leaving my mom over there to deal with this. And my mom was up in arms, but she knew exactly what to do at that point. Call Barbara Jackson. And Barbara came by immediately, and Barbara pulled me aside, and without any judgment, we had a conversation. And then she helped me compose a letter of explanation to the school. And as a result of that, all disciplinary charges were dropped, and much more importantly, going forward, I never showed any future teacher anything but the utmost respect, as well as their examinations. And as it turned out, that was, there would be quite a few teachers in my future, because I turned things around a little bit. I managed to collect a couple of graduate degrees and a PhD. So, yeah, Barbara Jackson taught middle school and high school for over 30 years. And just on behalf of all the disgruntled and frustrated students on whose lives she helped turn around, I just want to acknowledge what a tremendous blessing our lives are now because of her. And thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Kramer. I met Barbara and Kevin and Gordon 47 years ago here at St. Mary's. Barbara and I both loved to play tennis and had a regular indoor game for many years. Barbara gave me a baby shower for my third daughter in 1981, and later Ken, Barbara, and the boys took me and baby Melinda to the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, where the Archbishop of Canterbury, Robert Runcie at the time, stopped at our pew and blessed Melinda. Father Payne called us the day after Gordon died, and we drove to the house that sad morning. Barbara was lying in bed in shock and pain. I told her my mother had lost a son, too. And she asked, did she ever recover? I don't remember how I answered her, but I knew it would not be easy. With that incredible will that Barbara could summon, she created a life that was full and rich. She became a stellar teacher and touched the lives of so many. We can't ever know. She reached out to friends and embraced a life of caring for others. And through all of this, Barbara was managing her pain. You could see it in her eyes. The love and the pain together. It was a fierce combination. And it's that Barbara that I carry in my heart.
But I remember Barbara also as Superwoman. I'm Mark Kramer. I met Barbara and Ken 47 years ago. But like all of you, we did not know Barbara long enough. Jen and I just assumed she'd be with us forever, with her charm, her smarts, her humor, her grace, her compassion, her love. She was a force, a whirlwind, and a softie. I think she had trouble saying no. Many years ago, when she and Ken were about to leave on one of their many excursions, international excursions, this one to Europe, I had the gall to ask her if she would mind going to a special shop in Paris for us. It was the only place at that time where you could buy a certain china pattern. Without a second's hesitation, she answered, "Of course." I never gave it enough thought to realize that that would mean they'd be lugging our china all around Europe for weeks. But lug they did, and she and Ken dutifully delivered it back to us unbroken a month later. Barbara just wanted to do everything she could for everyone who needed her. And beyond that, of course, was her amazing ability to make you know that when you were speaking with her, you were the most important person in the world. She wasn't just being polite, she really meant it. And so for everyone who was her friend, you really were her best friend. She just had that amazing ability to take so much in and give so much back. It's how I will always think of Barbara. She really was Superwoman. Thank you.
That's funny. I'm Amy Williams. Thank you for letting me speak today, Ken. When I was 16, I walked in the side door of 44 Kitchell and met Barbara Jackson for the first time. I was nervous because I was the new girlfriend, and I wanted her to like me. That was the girlfriend. Barbara greeted me with a genuine warmth, and there was an immediate familiarity. We would later agree that we'd known one another in another life and were essentially just very happy to be reunited. Barbara saw me. As many people in this room can surely attest and have, she had X-ray vision into people's souls. To be seen by her was one of my life's greatest fortunes. I loved to read and write at 16, and we talked about books for hours, and she made me promise to write a book one day. As a 16-year-old, finding a kindred soul and a compass like that made me feel alive with possibility. She ignited my creativity. She endorsed it. That summer, she discovered I'd never been on the subway, had never been to the West Village, and so she immediately remedied that. We spent the day doing it. She showed me how to navigate the subway and the crisscross of the village, to treat the homeless with respect, and to find rare little gems in gift thrift stores. And over these many years, we went on to gift one another little gems from our travels. Later that same year, I went to say goodbye to her after Kevin and I broke up. I figured our story was at its end, and she quickly corrected my thinking. We sat in the same kitchen, and she told me that she would always be in my life, we would always be in one another's lives, and that Kevin and I would always be friends. I thought she was crazy that day, and yet I somehow believed her, and she was right. Decades later, when my own 16-year-old son brought home his first girlfriend to meet me, I paused and I channeled Barbara, and I welcomed her with warmth and kindness. Later, I texted Barbara and thanked her for showing me the way. And when my own 16-year-old daughter spent hours visiting with Barbara last year, they talked about, you guessed it, books, full circle. To Barbara, I say thank you for all your years of stalwart belief and love, for your letters that turned into calls, to emails, and then texts, for the thousands of book recommendations, for loving my children as if they were your own, for the wonderful stories about your life, your children, your grandchildren, and your travels and your days with Ken. I miss you very much, and yet I'm certain we will meet up in some other kitchen in some other life when it's time. Until then.
Hello, my name is Janet Benton. I think my words are going to sound really familiar. There's a theme here. Barbara had a way of welcoming people into her circle. I think we've all experienced it. For my partner David and me, it happened so invisibly and almost magically that we hardly remember a time that we weren't close with Barbara and Ken. We don't remember a time when we didn't feel like we were a part of their family. How and when did that happen? It's hard to say. Maybe it was our friendship with Paul and Barbara Jenkel, who simply folded us into their relationship with Ken and Barbara. Maybe it was our support of Neighbors Link, or my saying yes to Barbara's request that I help with the newly imagined Neighbors Link network so many years ago. Or maybe it was that Christmas party where we had such a good time that we were among the last to leave. It could have been one of the dinner parties where Barbara had the table set so beautifully and the professor posed provocative questions of the guests during dessert. Barbara would get so irritated with me when I tried to help with the cleanup. Or was it the summer dinners together in Amy's garden at the Kittle House? Maybe it was watching election returns together, nervously, fretfully. Most likely, it was the field trip we took to Memphis. Barbara took so much joy in sharing her place of growing up with us. We visited the site of her childhood home, dined on Memphis barbecue, and hit all the Memphis hot spots. The National Civil Rights Museum, the Stax Museum of American Soul Music, Beale Street, and of course, Graceland. It was an amazing trip, incredibly special to see the city through Barbara's eyes and to hear all the stories of her youth. Whenever it was, however it happened, we felt like family. The love and care Barbara extended to us was deep and special. She was endlessly thoughtful. She admonished me regularly about working too hard and urged me to take care of myself. I still remember the surprise delivery of soup on my doorstep that time I had a miserable cold. Barbara supported David with compassionate understanding and wise counsel when he was dealing with some distressing parenting challenges. She always had a gift for David's granddaughter or for my grandson when they were visiting. Even our dog scored a gift basket of toys and treats when we brought her home as a puppy. Barbara may have been an only child raised by her grandmother, but she lived a life full of friends who became family. David and I are honored to be among those.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Derry Golding. First of all, thank you, Ken, for asking me to speak today. It's an honor to be here and to share my thoughts about a wonderful woman, Barbara Jackson. Traveling on this journey that we call life brings us in contact with all sorts of people. And if we are lucky, we meet a few who have the power to change the course of our lives. For me, Barbara Jackson was this special lady. When Ken and Barbara returned to St. Mary's after being away for a few years, it was like welcoming long-lost friends back home. I immediately felt a kinship and a connection with them both. Over the last several years, I've had the privilege of working closely with Barbara as members of the vestry together, and with both Ken and Barbara on special projects around this church. Barbara had a generosity of spirit that invited you into her orbit, and she truly loved everybody that she met. I loved the way she would listen to me, and we shared many conversations that reflected her connection to her faith. I loved the way she made me feel when we were together, and in departing each other's company, she would always give me a hug and say, "I love you." The way Barbara lived her life was all about giving back, taking care of those in our greater community, and never forgetting the blessings that we have and being willing to share that with others. Her dedication to helping others set an example for me, and I strive to emulate this same devotion in my life. Ken, you were very truly blessed the day Barbara walked into your life, and I feel I was blessed as well. In closing, I offer this prayer. Barbara, may you know that your spirit is joined with ours as we all gather here today at St. Mary's. May you know that we are thinking of you with love in our hearts. And may you know that we will always remember you. We miss you, dear friend.
Dear Barbara, you left us too soon, and I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to you. So I find myself saying goodbye to you every day at about the same time that I realize I can't pick up the phone and call you. I really miss our long phone calls, all those phone calls where we strategized about Neighbors Link for hours, and you had the brilliant idea that we should start parent education programs, and you said we should call it the Family Center. And it was during our phone calls that you would tell me that together we would fight against hate towards immigrants. Together we would change hearts and minds. I miss our phone conversations where we talked about Ken and Andy and how lucky we were to have them in our lives. And you would tell me how Mary was like a daughter to you. I miss our phone conversations where you talked about how immensely proud you were of Kevin, Carla, Luke, and Dylan, and how much you loved them and how they were the world to you. And I miss your phone conversations where you helped me through the tragedies of my own life. When I lost my 4 brothers one by one, You understood because you knew about immense grief, and you selflessly shared your grief and pain with me because you knew that it would help me. Barbara, I want you to know that I will always remember the things you taught me. How to be a gracious host, how to soldier on after tragedy, how to have better grammar in my emails, and how to include the people that others have forgotten, and how to listen to the people that others ignore. Rest easy now, dear Barbara. You taught us all how to be better people. Signed with much love, gratitude, and admiration, Carola.
You're also very polite. I know Barbara would approve, but now we can help me thank all the wonderful I don't have anything to add that wouldn't sound like a broken record. I too am still working my way through the stream of books and articles and materials that constantly came my way. Agnes, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way, that this room is full of angels. It wasn't set up, but it's the truth. You all know that Barbara loved this little church, and she enabled a very green priest to come in here and feel like a rector and to become a rector. And as long as I'm the rector here, my promise, my goal, my mission is to make sure that this parish community reflects the love of Barbara back out into our community.
The first time I saw Barbara, she was a flower among the flowers in the garden of the Kittle House. I will always be grateful to Vicki Morris, who was a shared friend, for introducing me to Barbara. From the moment I saw her and spoke with her, it was like I had found my soulmate. I have never in my life been drawn to somebody, a woman, like that in such an immediacy. It was like gravity just sucked me in. And there is nothing that I can add to anything all of you have said, because she did call everyone her angel. She was just unbelievable. My husband, who has never been drawn to anyone like that, she made him feel as though he was smart, had a story to tell, that he should write a book. She was unbelievable. She makes everybody feel like they're smart, that they're capable, and they're beyond what they think of themselves. I have to take a breath. There was nothing that we couldn't share. We shared everything about each other. We knew each other inside out from the moment we began together. And sharing books, as I'm sure all of you know and spoke of, it was like, you've got to read this book, and you've got to read this book. And there was never a time we got together that we weren't handing each other books. So, all I can say is she is dearly beloved. She will always be missed. She leaves a hole. But it's a hole that is filled with love that she gave to all of us. She was a gift.
My name's David Dunbar. I really know Barbara through Ken. Ken and I did a book together, and I want to thank you, Ken, for letting me speak here. We did a book together, so what that meant was that every couple of months I would come up to Kitchell Road with these tubs of folders of this book, because the book turned out to be about 1,000 pages. So, and Ken and I would work on the book. So my opening story is a little bit different than everybody else's, I guess, but I'll have to make sure this is okay. So Ken and I would work on these things on usually Sunday afternoons, on the weekends and things like that, and every couple of months. So I got to know Barbara pretty well, because we would talk a lot during that time, and there were different downtimes, and Ken was watching the Yankees, and there were other things where he would get distracted. But I do remember one time where we were working on something, and Barbara comes into the room in that study, which is where we did all the work, and she's sitting there, and she's going up one side of Ken and down the other, and it's like, I've never seen anything like this. It's like unbelievable. And Ken's looking at me, and he goes, Barbara, David's here. He goes, he's been here for 4 years. Don't deflect. I don't know if I just knew a different Barbara in some ways than someone who did, but it was definitely a forceful thing to it. And it was something Ken clearly hadn't done, I think. Most of his sins were sins of omission, sins of commission. My conversations with Barbara were largely about teaching, and because we were both teachers. She was a teacher's teacher. And what I mean by that, and you can hear it in all the stories that some of you are telling, teaching is a very funny thing. It's actually, most of the research will tell you if you want to learn how to be a teacher, you can do it in about 5 to 7 years. And it's not that hard, really, when it comes right down to it. Question is, what are you going to do with the next 35 years after you've learned how to teach? And those are the teacher's teachers. Those are the people who do things with those 35 years. And what they primarily do, and what Barbara and I talked about, was the fact that it really it's not about teaching. I mean, yeah, it is, but it's really about learning. And what learning is something that is hard, because as a teacher, you always know what you're teaching. And as a teacher, you also know that you have no idea what's being learned. And it's something that Barbara and I talked about a lot. I think the thing about learning is that it's about growth and it's about change. And if you're in a life that is about learning, which is what hers was, that what you realize is that to be involved in a life of learning with other people is to be a champion. That you champion those people. That's what you do. How do you do that? What Barbara got intuitively, I learned from reading Kierkegaard, which is that, but she knew this already, and what it is this, is that when you're teaching, it's like you know what you are teaching. If you're talking about learning with somebody, and you're championing them, what you realize is that what you have to do first is you have to understand what they understand, and you have to understand how they understand. And if you can't do that, right, when that shows up in all the stories that you've been saying, the empathy and the Gatsby-like smile, except it was a real smile, not like Gatsby's, that all of that way of what she did, that's, in my frame of reference, that's what she did. The last thing I'll close is in the terms of writing, which is, I never got to read anything with Barbara, but we talked a lot about writing because we were in the process of writing, and I know she did a lot in terms of working with Ken as a writer as well. I mean, the two of them best editors I've ever met in my life. But we were finishing off this book, and got to the end, and you're writing the introduction, because you write the introduction after you've written the book, because you don't really know what you're talking about, so you got to introduce it. But once you get done with that, and I'm writing, and we're at the end, and I am really happy. So Ken's got his essays that he's done. I've got the final essay, which is the intro, and I've got the last part of it, and it's coming together, and it's all about what makes New York City, surprise, and why it is the way it is. And I'm looking at that, and Barbara's reading it, and going through, and the last paragraph, I have just killed this thing. I have nailed it. I feel so happy after 1,000 pages going through. And Barbara and I are looking at it, and Barbara just kind of, she reads, she goes, this is really good. I'm going, and? She goes, it's like, I don't think it's the end. I'm going, what do you mean? She goes, it's just not the conclusion, there's something else. I'm going, what's the something else? She goes, well, that's what you have to figure out. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, no, I think what you've done is you've got a great opening paragraph here. And so I went back, and a month later, he came back, and there I had a final essay. So that was my story.
My name is Elisa, and I heard of Barbara before I met her. Her reputation for generosity in our church community preceded her. Barbara, my husband, would say after church vestry meetings, she always takes a moment to thank folks for their effort, and I think that she held our church leadership up with her gratitude during the meetings. In the pews, I had the opportunity to meet her myself. Somehow we got on the topic of an article that I was writing, and she offered her own very good editing assistance. And as wives do, she volunteered Ken, too. So I knew that through that she was an excellent teacher, a talented writer, and an ever-encouraging supporter of the articles I was writing. She had plans for where the next article would be published before I had finished it, and I think that she held me up with her positivity, just like she held up the church leadership with her gratitude. Then our annual auction dinner came, and this was like the 7th or 8th that Andrew, my husband, and I had attended. And Barbara and Ken offered an educational talk at dinner at their home, and I knew she would inspire us to bid high. And we bid the highest we had ever bid before, just to have an evening with them. And fast forward to their house, and Andrew and 4 middle school boys drank up the details of the Civil War in the basement with Ken, while Barbara and I drank up our lives over a glass of wine. So we found that we had both been shaped by spending formidable years of our youth in working class communities that were mostly African American and quite scarred by racial division. And we both had a father who gave us something to think about with their choices. And for both of us, school academics were a place of peace and a place of opportunity, and the place we both met our husbands. We were both shaped profoundly by motherhood, and both quite happy to lay it out to each other over one kitchen conversation, so Barbara did not waste time. So she told me she'd been part of St. Mary's for many years, but because of the loss of her son and so much pain, she had spent some time away, and then she came back. And for my work, I write wills for people, and I walk through the lives of my clients regularly, and I love listening to the stories of them retelling their lives. And I know who will get a bequest, and who will make healthcare decisions, and who's not visited, so gets nothing. And I know from my clients that returning to a place of pain and making it positive, like Barbara and Ken did, is not easy. And all of us at St. Mary's benefited from their decision and their strength to come back. And when I look around the room and I think about how many people my husband said were in the Mount Kisco Church, I know that Barbara is teaching us all a lesson. And I'm grateful to Barbara because she taught us about grace, and in that way, she'll always be my teacher.
Hello, I'm Del Short, and I taught at Blindbrook with Barbara. I was there from 1976 to 2004, and Ken asked me to speak, really to represent what it was that she meant to Blindbrook. And while I was sitting in the church listening to all the testimonials, I'd look at my wife and I'd say, well, she just said what I was going to say. She just said what I was going to say. And so it's a little hard to speak at the end. And I have a speech here on my phone, but I'm going to pretty much scrap it. But by way of introduction, I should tell a story about when Barbara organized Shakespeare Day at Blind Brook. All classes were canceled. We had a professional acting company come in to do some scenes, and workshops of various kinds went on all day. And to prepare for this, someone had a connection to the costuming department at SUNY Purchase. And we went over and went to go through all of these great costumes. And when we came out, everybody had selected something that they'd wear that was Shakespeare appropriate. I chose to be Bottom from Midsummer Night's Dream, which meant that I wore a donkey's head for the day. Barbara chose to be Queen Elizabeth. This tells you something about our relative standing within the department. While I got to play a jackass, she got to play the regal, overseer of the English Renaissance. So, incidentally, it was a great success, and she, of course, was key in organizing it. When Barbara came to be the department head at Blind Brook, I'd already been there about 10 years. And maybe I was a little wary about some outsider coming in to take over the department from a beloved department head who had just retired. But I shouldn't have been, and I wasn't for very long. Very soon, I was a huge admirer of Barbara. I had nothing but admiration and respect for her. And eventually, we became dear friends. Pretty quickly, we became dear friends. I was also, at that time, a little bit shaky, secretly, about how effective a teacher I was. Two things really helped me in this regard. One was a remarkable grad course I took about teaching literacy, and the other was that Barbara Jackson started to treat me like a star, or an angel, perhaps. Now, we have to bear in mind that everyone who met Barbara felt like a star, and everybody who knew her felt she was a dear friend. And I just sat there in awe listening to the people speak in the church about this was universal. Now think of what this gift means, and I think, is it David Dunbar? He stole my other thunder by talking about the gift of teaching, a gift that Barbara totally embodied. I can remember seeing her conferencing the students in the English department office. There would be the student with a paper that they had drafted. And she would be talking to them, and they'd look at the paper, and then she'd look up into their eyes and ask a question. And then they'd go back to the paper, and the student would start making revisions on the paper. Barbara wasn't wielding the pen. It reminded me of the story somebody told, was it you, Dylan? About needed to write an essay, and she sat and took notes. Ask questions, write notes. Well, it seems you think this. Do you want to say that? This is the way she conferenced. And it was so intimate, and it was so reassuring for the students. It wasn't just with the students, and it wasn't just with me. It was with the custodians. It was with the lunch ladies. It was with the parents who came in to see her with some concern about their child. She was just remarkably kind and thoughtful. Now I have to scroll a bit. On the web page that contains Barbara's obituary, there is space for comments. And I went through those yesterday. And I pulled just two out by former students. The first says this: Mrs. Jackson was an amazing teacher and role model. She was a favorite teacher of so many with her intelligence, sophistication, and sassiness that made everyone look forward to her classes. I learned so much from her. And I did choose that one for the word sassiness. And another. She was my teacher at Blind Brook and had a huge impact on me. She was no nonsense, she was funny, and she loved the literature she taught us. I don't think I'd be a journalist today if Mrs. Jackson had not been there to teach me in the early years. I am eternally grateful that I was so lucky to know her and be taught by her. The author of that comment is the Deputy Chief of Investigation for The Guardian in the United States. And a great student. I had her too. Feinberg was so small that everybody had every kid. You know, we knew every student in the building, whether they were in our class at the time or not. And so this gift that Barbara had just spread throughout the hallways too. It was everywhere. Her gift was a gift of intense caring. It's the same gift that Father Lee spoke of so personally and beautifully at Barbara's funeral. I was very moved by that eulogy. And although I am not a religious man, I think it is the gift captured in the statement at the heart of St. Mary the Virgin, where we stand. We are called to be a holy people who witness God's love to the world and serve others. I read that and I thought, of course, that was Barbara's home.
My gosh, what a wonderful, wonderful evening. And I met with Barbara after a long time. I used to be a neighbor of hers, and she gave me a call. I think I met her back here in church. She said, Molly, come on over, let's catch up, you know? And, you know, we've all been through a lot. And this is something that I remember every time I think about her. When we were talking, I was talking about all these things that I'd been through that I hadn't had a chance to share with her. And I would hear, that's all I have to say.
My first memory of Barbara was at the Mount Kisco Presbyterian Church years ago. And I look back, and on the back pew, I see this beautiful woman wearing a beautiful hat. I thought, who is that? And after the service, Jack Miller introduced us. And after I learned she was a Southerner, I said, oh boy, I'm sure I'll have something in common with this woman. And I will speak the same language. We didn't. She lost her accent. And we didn't speak the same language. Anyway, after our initial meeting, I think you guys moved to California. And we moved to Thailand. So it was, I think, at least 10 or 15 years before our paths crossed again. But it was at Neighbors Link on the Friends Committee, where we were planning fundraisers, obviously, for Neighbors Link. And everybody knows that she put her heart and soul into Neighbors, as well as in teaching, her heart and soul. Although, I think it was her second heart and soul, because Ken, Kevin, Bill, and Luke, you guys were her first heart and soul. Anyway, yes, she was everything everybody has said. She was so compassionate about the work there, so caring, so generous. But she was also very focused, very tenacious, and very determined. And I know all of you have read that poem, The Dash, which alludes to tombstones, engravings on tombstones. There's the birth date, and there's the dash, and there is the date of your death. I don't know of anybody who has more in their dash than Barbara Jackson. And I was so honored to be your friend.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm Father Chris Lee's wife, those of you who haven't met. Just a few really short comments. Again, obviously, I don't want to repeat what everyone else has said, except why not, because it's worth repeating, which was what an amazing soul. But just a few short things. So we came here to Chappaqua just a couple of years ago, and one of the first people that Chris said, you have to meet this couple, were Ken and Barbara. And again, from the moment we met, she it was a big transition. We left the city, our boys, one boy was going off to college, the other was starting high school. It was a big time of change, and she was just on top of offering love and comfort and support. Number two, with apologies to Ken, she and I got to talk about The Great Gatsby. I come from an arts background and I love lit. And I told her that friends of mine have a theater company in New York that was doing a word-for-word production of Great Gatsby called Gats. And it was an 8-hour performance with a break. And the next thing she said to me was, oh, well, I'm gonna go. Ken and I are gonna go. And they went, and she told me she loved it. Ken, I know you were along for the ride, so congratulations. And then the next Sunday in church, they were in front of me in the pew, and in the middle of, I don't know, maybe you were preaching, but what was more important to her was that she reached in her bag and she pulled out the ripped out page from the New Yorker, the review of Gats, and handed it to me and said, you have to read this. And I had already, but it was so lovely that she was excited about that. Just two other quick notes. I'm also an educator. I was not a full-time teacher like her, and congrats to everybody who does that. But just today, I run a small education program, and just today I was working with the person who's going to teach my summer class, and we were talking about the syllabus, and I was thinking about coming here tonight, and I was getting so excited to talk about the syllabus, and I was so excited about ideas and what it means to really connect with students, and I'm so appreciative of all the teachers here who are calling on that part and talking about that part of her life, because I could only aspire to be like 0.1% of what she does, what she did. And finally, the last thing I want to say is, a lot of times we all, or me, I have impulses to do something and then I don't follow through. And even though we only have known the Jacksons for a couple of years and all of you have known them much longer, I'm almost jealous of that. One of the things, I had an idea sometime in the fall or December. I wanted to write them a note to say thank you for your friendship, for both of you, and how lucky I feel to have been friends with her and still be friends with you, Ken. And so I actually got out a piece of stationery and I wrote a note. And I told them both. I addressed it to both of them, and I told them both how important their friendship was to me. And I sent it, and I'm so glad that I followed through on that impulse. And then Barbara's response to me, when she said, I got your note, she said, I sleep with it under my pillow. And again, any other person saying that, you'd think, oh, come on. But that just put me on cloud nine. So anyway, thank you.
I'm Jennifer Scantelli, and I'm a member of St. Mary the Virgin, and also serve on the vestry. And I have three things I'd like to say. The first thing is that I want to tell you, if you don't know this already, how much Barbara loved Ken. And almost every conversation I had with her, she would say, did you ever see Ken's collection of little soldiers in the basement? Have you read Ken's book about New York? Do you know that he used to take his students on a bike ride around New York City? And he was so loved by his students. But again and again and again, always talking about Ken. And I thought that was such a wonderful, loving thing all the time, Ken. The second thing is that when Barbara and I served on the vestry, I'd always wait for her to say something because she was so wise. I would be sitting here and she would be sitting over there, and I'd be always waiting for her hand to go up, waiting for the wisdom. And she, no matter what, she was quiet at times, but sometimes as soon as that hand came up, you'd know that some very wise suggestion, advice would come from her, and that was always greatly appreciated. The third thing is that I like to speak about her humanness because twice she told me a story about meeting the Queen of England. And you probably all have heard this story too. But, After meeting her and how self-assured and wonderful and educated she was, that experience was very nerve-wracking for her. And she said she was on the line and getting ready to meet the Queen. And she said, I didn't really know what to say. So she went up there and she said something about her outfit. And she expressed to me twice what an embarrassment that was to her. And I thought, this self-assured, wonderful woman is just showing her humanness by being so uncomfortable in that situation. And I'll always remember that story. But thank you, and we loved her so much, and we still miss her and always will.
I am Nancy Strong, and a friend of Neighbors Link. And anybody who knows about Neighbors Link knows there's 3 people that you never say no to. One was Barbara, one was Agnes, and one is Carola. And you don't put them in any particular order. If they call you and ask you to do something, you don't even try and say no because you're going to end up doing it anyway. So last year, or 2000, whatever it was, I got a call from Barbara. She was here and I was in Arizona, and she said, Ken has a board meeting in Arizona, and he would like to know if you could take us on a tour of the historic neighborhoods of Phoenix. I grew up in Connecticut, lived here most of the time, but I said, when are you coming? And she said, next week. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I will figure it all out, and when you get here, we will have a tour. So I got off the phone, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to put a semester's worth of work into making this good for the professor and Barbara. So I did, and it was the first time I researched myself, and then first time I said, let me try this ChatGPT thing. And it kind of confirmed what I had found, and I made the tour, and I borrowed a car because Roger and I have only this 2-seater car, or had only this 2-seater car. So I borrowed a car from a friend, went and picked them up at the hotel they were staying in. We did a tour, they changed it a little bit, they wanted to go to lunch somewhere, we went there. And then we were going to go somewhere else. They said, you know, let me take you up to where we live here because it's kind of different than what we had seen downtown. And we drove up north into the mountain and the desert. And Barbara's eyes just lit up and she said, thank you so much, Nancy, for bringing us here because I really didn't want to come on this trip. But when I got here and I see where you are and the views and the mountains and the cactus is just beautiful. And then I brought them to dinner and then brought them to the airport. So of course, Barbara wrote a beautiful note to me. And she also wrote a beautiful note to my friend who loaned us the car. She never met. So there's everything that everybody else said, plus my little story, and she was just a blessing to us all. Thank you.
My thinking is probably you're hungry, but we're about to come to an end. Today, I went to Barbara's grave, which is in Kensico Cemetery, which among my many weird interests are cemeteries. I wrote a book on cemeteries. Kensico happens to be one of America's most elegant and important cemeteries. It's huge. It's got all sorts of mausoleums. New York area has 3. The first one is Greenwood in Brooklyn. The next one is Woodlawn in the Bronx, and then Kensico here. And anyway, as I was standing over her grave, it doesn't have her tombstone yet, but I was talking to her and telling her we were going to do this tonight, and that she would no doubt know many of the people who were here and not be surprised. But what I'd like to say is that I would like to think she heard me and that she was aware that we were doing this tonight and would not be surprised with the many wonderful comments you made about her. And I know you'll also understand why it's helping me to not have the survivor guilt that people from the Holocaust feel. Why did the good one die? I'm still here. And I do feel some of that. It's hard not to. But with all the great support I've had among all the people here, and I know Richard Bushman and his wife Claudia come out from the city. He's the most famous Mormon historian in the United States. And others, David Dunbar, whom you heard from. You know, there's so many wonderful people. And we did not broadcast this program tonight because we did not want it to be like the funeral. The funeral was wonderful, but people didn't get to say anything or take a role in what happened. Anyway, I think Barbara would be pleased at what you said. I think she would be honored, and I certainly feel honored, and I want to thank you all for coming. Now, we're going to have a big, let's eat, let's enjoy, and let's do some things. Thank you all for coming.